Backing up your data, my data, all of the data is so important, but it's something far too many of us just don't do on a regular basis. And facing the loss of your photos, important documents, projects, it doesn't have to be a part of your future because sooner or later something is going to happen that's going to put you in the position of possibly losing your files. Let's put it that way. So we're going to talk tech about why data backups are a must, simple methods to do it that'll work for everybody. We'll talk a little bit about cloud solutions and talk about why this simple thing can save you a lot of tech headaches. Let's go. Okay, I'm super excited to be talking about this. And yes, I realize what a geek that makes me, but backups are an important thing that far too many of us don't know that we should be doing, right? Or don't know what they are. Or we know that we should be doing them, but we don't. So we're going to dive in on this because it's an overlooked part of our online and digital lives. But if something goes wrong at some point, it's not really an if, but a when. You're going to regret not having done it. And it's one of those things, that you can't go backwards in time and do, right? So once you've had the problem and you've lost files, those files are lost. So let's talk about how you can do this, what the benefits are, all that kind of good stuff. And let's just put it out there, right? So this applies to everybody, okay? So if you're a student, a business owner, an individual is just using computers and technology on any level, okay? No matter how little you are using them, you've still got stuff that you need to back up so that you don't lose it. And this covers everything from like those precious, photos and videos, right? Your files, right? Your important files, your reference files, files from purchases you've made, all that kind of stuff. Not doing it is going to cause you pain. I've had too many people on the phone crying, and I really want to stop that from happening. And it's really not that hard to do. We just need to have the conversation about it, right? And to be clear, this applies to all your devices. So we're talking computers, tablets, phones, all the things. All of the things where you have stored stuff, this applies to. Why should you care, right? That's always the first question for this type of content is, I don't care. Why should I care? Tell me why I should care. Let's cover some of the big ones, right? Oops, I deleted it. We've all had that moment, right? You hit delete, maybe the application or the tool even says to you, are you sure? And you're like, yes. And the second you verify it, you have that, oh, I didn't mean to do that moment, or I shouldn't have done that, or, oh, wait, there's no waiting. Once you have verified it, it's gone. Now, yes, there are some very specific situations where you might be able to get that type of thing back, but it's a point in time thing. And most people, by the time they've reached out to me, have done too much on their system to be able to get it back, because it is definitely like in the window where you do that, you need to take steps immediately. And those steps are not using your computer until you get some help. Right. So we're talking like, I've had people contact me. They've worked on, an essay for school and it's gone and they spent 3 weeks on it. A work presentation, again, family photos, videos, that type of thing. Like, they're working on their taxes and all the tax documents that they had been storing up all year. Poof. Hardware failure. Okay. Hard drives are wonderful things and they do have long lives mostly, but unfortunately, sooner or later, any hard drive is going to fail. It doesn't matter what type of hard drive it is. Sooner or later, it's going to fail. Often these days without any warning. Used to be that, you would get some sort of bad noises coming from your hard drive. But at this point, with all the different hard drive types out there, you may not get a warning. You just may go for something someday and it's not there anymore. That is, again, it's the kind of thing where, yes, you can pull the drive out. You may be able to send it to somebody who does recovery as a job. First of all, that's very expensive. Second of all, it's not 100%. And third of all, if you have a bad enough crash, there may not be anything that can be done. Ransomware and hacks. Okay. I mean, cyber issues are out there and they're out there all over the place. I'm just realizing I needed something and I'm not going to have it handy, but okay. Let me just look real quick. Okay, I had a prop for this, but I forgot to grab it. But these are things that even the best of us are, susceptible to, that the people who are out there doing these things are way too good at it. I don't like giving them credit. But it can be very hard. And if you have backups of your stuff, it doesn't matter if they've got it. Well, and mostly it doesn't matter. But if you have a backup that has not been touched by whatever they've done, then at least you still got your stuff and you can keep moving forward. So that is something. Natural disasters, right? I mean, you can't read the news, watch the news, or step outside without being aware of that, right? So fires, floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, all of the things, mudslides. They don't give you warning. They don't necessarily, say, hey, might be a good time to back up your stuff and put it someplace safe. You sometimes are in a situation where your only option is to just get you, your children, and your pets out, right? And you don't have time to grab your computers and do all the other things. So again, having backups, especially backups off-site, which we will talk about, could make all the difference into how much pain and suffering you have on top of whatever you have to deal with as a result of the natural disaster. Theft, losing your devices, all that type of thing. It happens. But you don't have to let a bad thing get even worse by also losing all of your data, all of your files, and not have a way to get access to them someplace else. So that's why we're talking about this, because it is an overarching problem, and it is something that you want to be prepared for, because if you do it now, your future self will thank you. And these are the kinds of things where that's very important. But for those of you who are new here, I do want to reach out and just say hello and welcome. You may not have ever been here before. My name is Kathleen. I'm here as your tech coach. The short version of the story is I do technology as my day gig. It's also my hobby. So my friends, family, neighbors, coworkers tend to come to me when they have a question, when they have a problem, or in those moments when they're crying because something's been lost. Those are not the fun calls. I've realized over time that not everybody has somebody to talk to. So hello, we're here every week. I bring a topic, but you are always welcome to come and hang out in chat where everybody is saying hello. And, share, your thoughts, post any questions, that type of thing. You can also reach out to me here at yourtechcoach.com if you have a question, if you need more information on a particular topic, if you want one-on-one consulting, if you have a topic you want me to cover, that's where you need to go. Alrighty, so let's keep going here and talk about how you get started with this type of thing, right? So there's different ways to do this, and putting them together is a good thing to do, which we will get into, right? So starting off with is an external hard drive. Now that can be like a little box, which again, I did not grab, but they come in different sizes. The external hard drives have a case. You usually plug them into power, and then you plug them into your computer. The nice thing about that is you do it, right? You plug it in, you can manually copy your files off, or you can use software to do it. And then, and this is the important part, make sure you take that external hard drive, unplug it, and put it someplace that's easy to get to so that you can do it again on whatever your schedule is. The reason for that is leaving it connected to your computer means that if your computer gets damaged, or ransomware, malware, that will then spread to the external hard drive, which kind of defeats the purpose of doing the backup. So that's why it's key to do the backup, either manually or using software, and then remove it from the computer until the next time you're going to do that update, because that way it is protected, because it is separate from your main computer system. Cloud storage. So things like Google Drive, Dropbox, OneDrive, iCloud, all those kinds of things will store your data on the internet for you. So even if something happens locally, right? So let's say that there is a natural disaster, right? And so your home computer and your external drive, which is safely stored someplace away from your computer, unfortunately, if you have a fire, if you have a mudslide or whatever, all of that's going to go with whatever else you're losing in your home. But if you also have your stuff out on the cloud, it's accessible wherever you are. So that gives you that extra layer of backup. And another tool for this type of thing is using like dedicated backup software. Now, some of the online like cloud storage ones, they offer tools. There's also just tools that you can install. We'll cover a couple of them, but basically if you go online and search, you'll find that there's a bunch of them. But that will let you do things like schedule, do compression on it, do a selective or a complete backup, or do a backup of just new stuff, which will save some time. Adding encryption, all that kind of good stuff. So lots of options there. The important thing here is the 3-2-1 rule. This is like the one ring to rule them all when it comes to backups. This is the recommended strategy. It works very, very well, and it's easy to remember, right? 3-2-1. So you want 3 copies of your data. So that's your original files on your computer. Okay, you want one backup, local or semi-local, right? So in your house someplace, or, maybe stored at work or something like that. And one offsite copy. So one that's very far away. So that could be the cloud. It could be friend or family. But so the trick here is you have to think about the different types of things that we've been talking about, right? It could be that there are natural disasters, that type of thing. So if you work out a deal with your neighbor to swap hard drives every once in a while, and that could be a thumb drive, that could be a external hard drive, could be a lot of different things. That's great, and it's a good way to go as long as you trust them, because you do want to keep security in mind here too. But if a natural disaster hits your house, what are the odds that it's going to hit their house, right? Or a friend in the area. So you do want to kind of widen that circle as much as you can. But what I usually do and what I recommend is you have your local copy on your computer. You have a semi-local copy with a friend, family, neighbor that you trust, who is maybe not on the same street, and then also to the cloud. By doing all 3 of those, that gives you the absolute best case scenario for always being able to get your files back. So 3, right? 3, 2, 1. 3 copies of the data, at least 2 different storage types, and 1 offsite copy. All right, let's keep going here. Okay, so what should you be backing up? We're talking things that you can't easily replace. Okay, so important documents, financial records, schoolwork, work for the office. We're all working from home, right? By the way, if you're working from home, you're probably going to want to check with your office, because they may not be okay with you backing up stuff for work to your local or your personal resources. They may have specific tools and locations that they want you to use. So to avoid getting in trouble, talk to them first about those files. Your files, you take care of, you do your thing. Photos, videos, anything like that, right? You don't want to lose the first day you brought your puppy home, or baby's first steps, or your wedding video, all that kind of stuff. Important emails. Now, some email providers do automatically do a backup, so that depends. But it's worth doing the extra backup. And by the way, this is a case where, like, if you're using Gmail, the conversation we had last week about Google Takeout is another good way to back up some data of that's yours, and that's important. But we're talking like, somewhere in your email, you probably have, proof of purchase for software, important conversations with people that aren't here anymore, like things that you can't lose, you don't want to lose. So you want to make sure that you've got those. Project files, any of your creative work, anything like that is precious and important. Tax documents are a big one. So make sure that you've got all of your tax documents, all your business documents. Now this applies, whether you're a small business, you're a solo entrepreneur, you're an organization, or, you're a crafter who's selling things online, whatever it is, you want to keep the history of whatever level of business you may or may not have set up, your business name, your records, your customer records. All of that stuff is so critical and not easily replaced. So do make sure you've got all that kind of stuff. Downloaded install files, right? So if you've purchased software that you use on a regular basis, that company may not exist tomorrow. So you want to make sure that, you've got the backup file of the installation file if it's a tool that you rely on, anything like that. How often should you be doing this? I'm sorry. I know everybody hates this answer, but it depends, and it truly does, right? If you change file, if you're doing a lot of work all the time, every day, you're maybe going to want to do daily or weekly. If you do it less often, maybe monthly or every other week will work for you. And then it's also the level of importance, right? So maybe those business files, right, or tax stuff you want to do daily or weekly, but the less important stuff, maybe that can hold off a little bit and do that once a month. So it kind of depends on what's going to work best, what the kind of information you're backing up, what kind of tool you're using to back up, so on and so forth. Maybe you're going to do the local, like you've got the local files. Maybe you're going to do the backup to the external hard drive weekly, right? Because you can just go grab the computer, put it in while you're making dinner. And then maybe you're going to do the cloud backup every other week or monthly. So again, it doesn't this the actual structure of your frequency doesn't matter as much as doing it and sticking to it. So if it's easier for you to remember to do it every Thursday at 4 p.m., then do that, right? If that routine is going to work better for you. If you are automating it or you're good with different, like more complex structure, then maybe you could do, weekly for X and monthly for Y. That's all okay too. I'm sorry. I get really excited about this. I should slow down a little bit. Here is hands down the step I see skipped most often, right? When I have this conversation with people and they do set themselves up and they start to do the backups, they're pretty good about everything else up to this. And that is test those backups. Just because you've done the backup to the internal, to your external drive that you're putting somewhere in the house and or the cloud, if you don't test it, if you don't run scenarios where it's like, okay, let's make believe I've lost all my files and try to access them. If you don't do that, then you find out at that critical moment when you needed those files that something went wrong and what you thought was getting backed up wasn't. That is not a good thing. Please don't do that to yourself. We all have enough stress in life. So once a quarter, twice a year minimum, go into your backups, all of the ones that you've done, and do that scenario testing. I need to get these files. Can I get them? Am I getting back what I expected? Because it is so much better to fix that before you need it, because you cannot fix it after you need it. So please, please, please test your backups regularly, often, and for real. Don't say, oh, I did it before. Do it. And once a quarter, I highly recommend. Twice a year minimum. What are some potential issues? There's not a whole lot other than you've set up your backup, you've been copying your files, but maybe then you find out that it's not working. Like that's stuff that you can fix, and that's why you're going to test it more often. But other things, that people maybe don't factor in is cost, right? So some of the backup services are a subscription fee, some of them are a monthly fee, so you have to figure out what you're going to be able to afford because you need to be able to do this going forward. Security is another thing, which I kind of touched on before. So if you're going to hand over a hard drive of all of your important files to somebody in a separate location, you want to make sure that you trust that person and that location is secure. So for example, my best friend from childhood, we swap drives on a fairly regular basis, right? Thumb drives, external drives, whatever. I would trust her with my life. I've trusted her with my dog, so there's proof. But you do need to factor that in, right? Because relationships can change over time. Or, maybe they've got somebody living with them. Maybe it's a shared living situation and, you trust them, but maybe the roommate's not so much. So you need to think about that kind of thing. Now, there are steps you can take as far as you could put that drive into a lockbox, again, not that couldn't be broken, but, all security is, levels of effort, and you want to make sure that the level of effort is so high that they just can't be bothered. So you want to think about that as a big part of things. Also, their possible exposure to other things that caused you to want to have backups, is that of course it's going to affect them. But, what are the odds of you having a natural disaster type experience and them also having it? If you're neighbors, it's high. If you're in the same town, it's still pretty high. If they're in another state, maybe not so much. So all that kind of stuff is stuff to think about. Time, right? So initial backups for sure, but also depending on the type of files you're doing, it can take a while for a backup to run. And generally, it's not a great idea to work on your computer while you're doing especially the big initial backup, because by virtue of using the machine, you're going to be changing files, which is going to make it more complex for the backup process. So you want to factor that in. Graphic files, video files, stuff like that, or anything that's really big like that, you're going to want to keep an eye on. When you are backing up to the cloud, probably ideally don't want to do that on a night when there's a good chance or a day that the power might go out, right? So in the middle of a thunderstorm, not a great time to do a backup. If you see the truck out on your street, for your provider, there's a good chance that whatever servicing they're doing could result in you losing connection. Well, that's going to cause a problem for your backup too. So you do want to factor that into everything. All right. So hopefully by now you realize it's not that scary to do a backup. Literally you can do this manually yourself by just dragging and dropping the files from your local hard drive to the external or to your cloud storage. But there's also software that will do this for you and help make it easier. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple of those tools. Now, let me just be very clear here. I'm not an affiliate for any of these. I'm not making any money for these. These are just ones that I know people have used successfully. They've got good reviews, that type of thing. None of these work for you. You can go online and you can do your own search and you can ask around. There are a lot of options out there, which is good news. So you just want to keep an eye on that. But basically what you're looking at is either software that you're going to download and install on your computer and then run so that you're doing the backups. Again, you can choose to do that manually, or you can set it up to be a scheduled job that runs. But remember, in order for the scheduled job to run, you have to have the computer on and you have to be connected to the internet. So keep that in mind. The other are cloud solutions. Some of those also include scheduling. But again, your computer has to be on, you have to be connected to the internet. Or you can take it manually upon yourself to just drag and drop the file. So choice is up to you. So let's take a look. Here we go. All right, so this is one, Acronis, and of course all the links are in the description. So I'm going to show you, all of these tools have different levels of service. For the most of us, the home level of service is going to be fine, but they do offer business and enterprise if that also applies to you. So you can go in and you can check this out. So this is pretty basic, right? So you've got your backup option, disk cloning, and it explains the difference. And it talks about if you want a cybersecurity piece, you can also have that. And you can go in and you can see the layout and understand, what it offers. This is got the pricing. So it's $50 a year and so on and so forth. There's different levels. Hang on. Make sure I've got the right ones here. Oh, okay. What they had in their tab looked weird. Carbonite, you have probably heard this name. They go on binges where they advertise a lot. But again, different levels of service. Now, this is something to watch out for. If you've got more than one computer, which you probably do if you're talking about backing up your computer and your phone, let's say, but you do want to look to see what level. Some of them limit it, some of them don't, but you want to be aware of that. You want to look to see some of them limit the amount of storage you can do. Some of them limit the files type. But this Carbonite's been around for a while, and they do most of the stuff. Well, that's interesting. It doesn't automatically back up videos anymore. Okay. But you can take a look at it and see, and it's Windows and it's Mac system, so you got that covered. And for this, so if you get one that's only one computer, then you might need to have an extra step of backing up your phone to your computer and then having the computer backed up. So there's different ways to keep it economical, but just something else to think about. iDrive, this is not a Mac thing. This is an independent company. I know that's confusing. But again, okay, so they do multiple device, right? And includes your phones and your tablets and all that kind of stuff. So that's why one of the reasons I like them. They do cloud. They do snapshots of your files, versioning. So you could get back to an older version of your file. That can be really helpful. Not all the services offer it, but let's say that you were working on a file for a long time, and all of a sudden it got corrupted. And that happens. I'm looking at you, Microsoft. So them having your backup and also then providing you previous versions of it, that can save you. It won't save you the time between, the clean version and the now corrupted version, but it means you didn't lose the whole thing. You don't have to start all over. So that's a nice perk to look at, which is why this is one of my favorites. But I just wanted to point that out. Let me get that out of the way so we can go back here. So there's that. They also offer cloning in addition to the backup. All kinds of. So you can go ahead and you can take a look at this. It's all about what is most important to you. This one has a free level and paid levels, and it's also on all the devices and all the operating systems. So that's really good. Again, they all do a really good job of explaining, how it works and what you can do with it, and syncing and backing up and all that kind of good stuff. So that is that. So let me just real quick, because I've used the phrases a couple of times. So there's backups and there's syncing. Okay. A backup takes a copy of the files that you tell it you want to save and puts it on a drive someplace and keeps them secure. Syncing is part of that back and forth. Now that's a little bit different. You can schedule your backup, and that's different than a sync, right? So scheduling your backup says, every Thursday, 4:00, run the backup and grab all the files that have changed and put them up there, or grab all my files and put them up there, however you choose to set it up. Syncing means that it's watching your computer in a good way. You're choosing to do this. Keep an eye on my computer, and when I change a file and things get quiet, grab the most current version and put it out there. So that's a little bit different, even though it sounds like it's the same. And part of that is because if you delete a file, then it's going to delete the file from the drive. Not the backup, but the sync. Think of it more like a mirror. A lot of people do this mirroring or syncing if they need to have their work environment handy wherever they are, so they can work wherever they are in the world, which is a great thing. But you need to understand what's happening. And I highly recommend that whatever path you choose, do a test. Create a quick file that you can afford to lose, a quick text file or something, hello world is a traditional, and then run the process and then delete that file and then go and check to see what's out there. If you still have your hello world file out there, then that was a backup and you're good. If you created it, you saw that it synced, but then when you deleted it from your local drive, it deleted it from the remote drive, then you're only getting a sync. And so you're only going to have the files that you have locally. And that's a really important distinction. So I wanted to make sure that was clear. All right. So as I pointed out, as we went through those, right, pricing is definitely going to be something to look at. There are free options. Most of those are going to be software that you download onto your computer, and then you're, setting it up, and maybe you're pointing it to your Google Drive or OneNote or something like that, instead of storing it on these particular servers for these companies who are doing that as a backup service. Your needs are what's going to define this, right? So do you just need backup, right? Do you just need backup to your local drives because you've got other plans on how you're going to maintain it offsite? Do you need heavy duty security on it? Do you need just some security on it? Do you want to be able to schedule it, or do you want to just do it manually yourself? All that kind of stuff. Ease of use is something else that's very important, right? You need to pick something that is going to work for you. So you may try something and find it's not working for you, in which case you can shut it down and try something else. Don't be afraid to do that. That's a very important piece of the puzzle. But the most important thing, the absolute most important thing, is back up your files and test those files, and do your backups either manually or scheduled on a regular basis. And that way, when things go wrong, you'll be okay. It's very, very important. All right. So for you folks out there, I love you, who go all the way to the end, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into what we were talking about as far as the backup and the sync, right? So whether you're using an automated tool or you're doing it manually, this is, I guess, is really more, no, it's really for the automated tools. So if you're going to use a tool and you're going to set it up to say, grab my change files, grab all my files, you need to make sure that you go very carefully through your details, through your setup, because you want to make sure that you're not deleting, you're not losing files when you delete things from your hard drive. So let me give you an example. Sooner or later, no matter how big the hard drive is that we get, right, we fill them up. We're all very good at that. No matter, I will never have a big enough hard drive because I'm always going to fill them up. Sooner or later, you're going to get to the point where you're like, okay, the computer's running slow. I need to clear off some space. That's where this difference between syncing and backup is critical and where people get into trouble, right? Because you think, oh, okay, I can delete this, 500 meg video of, the kid's first day at school because I've got it backed up. That's why you want to test before you do anything like this, because if you've only been syncing, but you thought you were backing up, when you delete that file, it's gone. And it's not a bug. It's not a problem. It is the sync doing what it's supposed to do, because the sync's job is just to keep a mirror copy of your hard drive and the online version of it, right? Or the stored version of it. So if you delete something from here, right, then it's gone from here the next time it updates. You're going to hear sync or you're going to hear mirror backup. Those are the most common terms for that. But you want to make sure you know what's going to happen before you get carried away cleaning up space. Not that cleaning up space is important and you need to do that, but do that test. I do it every time. I've been doing this for years and I still do that every time, just because it's possible something changed since the last time I did this. And I want to make sure that I'm not making my life worse while trying to make it better. So make sure you do a test, put one little file out there that you're putting out there solely to lose. Make sure it does show up in the remote location. Then go back to your computer and delete it to make sure that it's not gone from your backup list. And then you can go ahead and you can remove it from the backup, by the way. So you don't have to keep the garbage files, but it's just so important to test it. And so one example of this is Google Drive for Desktop. Google Drive for Desktop is great. If your goal is to keep a copy online of your work environment so that you can work from anywhere, you can get those files anywhere. And for me as a freelancer, and I've worked, multiple locations for different people, like I do this all the time. But I need to be very aware when I go to remove a file, right? So if I'm not working with a client anymore, I've given them their files, all that kind of stuff. I don't need them sitting on my computer anymore. But maybe I want to keep them because there's good stuff for my portfolio, or it's a client that's going to come back later, or, whatever. So I want to make sure I don't completely obliterate them, but I don't need them actively on my computer anymore. So I will do a customer name.txt test, compare between my backup and my sync, because I do both. Make sure it lands in both places, and then I remove it. So if this is my backup and this is my sync, okay, so the pen is my computer, my online backup. So when I then remove that file from my local computer, I want this one to go away and I want this one to stay. If that doesn't happen, then I go back in and I check everything before I go and remove those files in a big pile. So that is my bonus tip for you folks who power through all these things. Thank you, thank you, thank you. As always, and I forgot, So I meant to bring this up on screen, but I forgot. So another bonus for you folks. I am planning some stuff for this year. And so if you have ever had the thought, gee, I wish that somebody could help me with X when it comes to technology, there is a link in the description for a survey. I would love to hear from you what you need so that I can see if maybe I can work that into what I'm building out for this year. So the link is there. Please go ahead. Let me know. You can also reach out and let me know here if you prefer, yourtechcoach.com. Again, if you have any questions, if you have comments, if you have a topic you want me to cover, if you want to learn more about syncing, I'm happy to do a whole thing on that because it did come up a little bit. I try to avoid it, but it's important to understand at least at the basics when you're looking to do a backup what the difference is. So feel free if you need one-on-one consulting. I also do that. Other than that, I hope everybody is having a good month, and we will see you again next week. We're here every Friday at 8 p.m. If you are watching this on the replay and you have questions, comments, whatever, go ahead and pop those in wherever you're watching. I do go back. I go through all the comments. I just ask that you're a little bit patient with me because there's one of me, many of you, and so it does take a little time for me to go through them. All right? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Take care, and we will talk again soon. Bye.